We're going to talk about ghosting and cancel culture, and also how to just overcome and heal when you don't have closure in relationships. So, ghosting is when someone is cut off. Basically, all communication is cut off without explanation. Usually, this person will engage in a lot of contact and communication that is usually intimate and personal. Then all of a sudden, they may stop calling, they may stop texting, there may not be any response when you call or text. The person may go silent for days, for weeks, or even forever. uh, or when they do return, they may have a lame excuse or act like there was no big deal to their actions, or that the relationship was not serious enough to warrant you to be challenged by them not having conversation for you for a long period of time. So ghosting is just like a trendy new term that has been that culture has come up with over the last few years. But really, ghosting is nothing but not having closure in the relationship. Somebody leaving and then you don't really have closure. And so that's kind of what we're going to talk about today. Mercedes, do you want to share anything before I go on?
Yes, I'll just share that when we think about ghosting, it definitely is a sudden act of, rejection, and like Apostle shared earlier, can really attribute to some extra grief and loss. And so when you are in a situation where you're ghosted, it can definitely bring up past trauma that needs to be dealt with. So ghosting is definitely a trigger, and it can lead to, you beginning to feel issues such as lack of worth, lack of self-identity, not feeling like you're confident in who you are, maybe feeling like you are a part of the problem. And so that lack of closure and that lack of, communication can definitely bring things up in you. And so if you are somebody who has ever been ghosted, I think it's very important to pay attention to how you respond emotionally, mentally, and spiritually, because it can really begin to show you how that might be a trigger for another trauma that may have taken place or that you may have dealt with. When it comes to ghosting, it definitely is something that is seen as more acceptable in today's society. And so we know that people have been, ending relationships and doing one-night stands and all this crazy stuff for years and for decades. But the challenge that I'm seeing more so with this culture and, millennials and even actually the younger generation is that this is seen as acceptable, and it's seen as a form of communication, and it's seen as a form of, I'm just setting a healthy boundary. And so I think it'll be really important as we go forward to really address the difference between healthy boundaries and knowing when to cut off a relationship in a healthy way, and when you're ghosting and running away from problems or challenges instead of using conflict resolution skills. But that was all I was going to share.
That's excellent, because there's no way around the fact that due to the initial contact and communication and dialogue that is exchanged, there's an emotional soul tie that forms when you initially start to converse with someone and you're having a lot of contact with them, a lot of communication, and then there's that abrupt break off without explanation. That could be very confusing, that can be painful, and also, like you said, Mercedes, that could be a form of rejection. It can also cause trauma. And one of the things that happen is because of the lack of closure or no reason for the ghosting, it leaves the person and that relationship in ambiguity. So the ambiguity is where doubtfulness and uncertainty of meaning or intention resides. So you're left trying to figure out if something happened, if you did something, if that relationship really meant anything. Was that person really being truthful to you? What were their intentions? Was the interactions really important? Was what the things that they were claiming that they wanted to do or that that was important in the relationship? Were those really truthful and honest statements? Because another thing that happens with ghosting is someone, when they start to connect with you, they'll connect with you with all these intentions and what they really want in a friendship, what they really want in an acquaintanceship, what they really want in a relationship or even a marriage. And they'll tell you all these things, and then as you begin to like process with them and grow with them in relationship, you're thinking you're working on those things until all of a sudden the communication is cut off and you're like, what's happening? I thought they wanted to work on a friendship. I thought they wanted to be friends. I thought they wanted to pursue this until they, till there was some understanding of whether or not we were to be potential mates or not. You having all these thoughts or what have you. And then a lot of times when that person does come back and you're asking questions, they're making you feel like you misunderstood the relationship, or you didn't understand their intentions, or you was moving too fast, or there's all these misinformation and miscommunication and even gaslighting, because you started off communicating with me one way, and then when I start to make you accountable for not doing that anymore, you start to gaslight me like I'm the one that has the problem, not you. And so that's just huge right now, among culture, among social media, especially those who are striving to use social media to meet people and to form relationships. And even we're seeing this in ministry and in the church. And with ministry in the church, you're expecting a certain character. You're expecting a certain type of interaction because that person is saying that they're a Christian or they're a believer, but really they're operating with you just like somebody that was in the world. And so it could be very challenging at times. Mercedes, do you want to share anything?
Yes, I think that what you shared was super important, because at this point in time, it's so easy for people to put forth what they want you to see, and then if you don't like what you see, it's just a mindset of, well, if you don't like me, don't follow me. If you don't like me, you don't have to talk to me anymore. If you don't like me, A, B, C, D. But there's no real true accountability to where that person has to really grow up and mature and have these adult conversations and really dialogue and reflect on the fact that, okay, that wasn't, wise. That wasn't something that was, showing regard for your emotions or showing regard to your feelings and the things of that nature. And so I think with ghosting, it really is hiding behind the fact that you have not yet matured into a place of having emotional resilience. You haven't come into a place of truly knowing how to be bold and confrontational in your relationships. And truly, people oftentimes, they kind of brag about that type of behavior, but really it shows a level of fragility and instability, because you're not in a place of maturity to be able to communicate what it is that your needs are. And so a lot of times when people are ghosted, one of the big reasons that I've seen is because people have actually gotten to a place to where they feel like there are so many different options that they don't want to talk to one particular person. And instead of saying, hey, I believe in dating, I believe in talking to different people, they will find a reason, to ghost that person so that they can jump to the next person. And so there's really no emotional accountability to where people are having that conversation and just saying, hey, actually, I'm exploring my options right now. I'm not in a relationship. I'm not, dating. I'm not being sexual with anybody else, but I would like to, get to know a couple of different people. And so, that's not my standard for my life. But if you are a person who believes in dating, you need to be able to communicate that. You need to live from a place of honesty and integrity, even if it is somebody that you are just getting to know or you are just trying to explore things with. And so I really think that there is a lack of accountability in those areas. And because people are not teaching what healthy dating is and what healthy relationships are, it has become accustomed to have these types of interactions and not have anybody talk to you. Your pastor's not, in your DMs talking about, why did you ghost that girl? Why did you ghost that man? Why did you stop talking to that person and jump to the next person? There's no one really being accountable. So if you don't have friends, family members, covenants in your life who are looking at that situation and saying, okay, hey, you've been talking to quite a few people, you are not really settling down. It seems like you have trust issues. It seems like you have issues committing to one woman or one man. If you don't have those people in your life who are challenging you and having those conversations, it is so easy to slide by in that place of immaturity and never developing to where you can have healthy relationships. And I think that's one of the biggest dangers of ghosting and cancel culture.
Yes, I definitely agree. I also believe that people they engage in ghosting because they are immature in the area of really not knowing what type of relationship they want, but they also are thrill seekers. They they like the attention, they like the doting, they like how it feels initially when you meet somebody and you're starting to interact with them. But then as they start to have to be accountable to the relationship and really process to a place where this becomes something, that thrill leaves, and so they leave. I also think some of these people are sneaky. They just sneaky. They're not really looking for a committed relationship. They're looking for who they can seduce. They're looking to see what they can get away with. And even in Christendom, a lot of believers are looking to see what they can get away with without actually saying I'm sinning. So, I can engage you in conversation as if I'm having a relationship, but I'm not going to engage to the level where I'm going to be accountable to really following through with the relationship. But at the same time, I'm getting my needs met for love, belonging, friendship, companionship. I'm fulfilling the void and the need that I'm having at that moment because I was lonely, so I wanted somebody to talk to. So I hit you up, but then after I'm over it, or I'm going back to being busy with ministry or busy with life, I don't need that anymore. And then when I need another touch or my void's fulfilled again, then I'm coming back to you. And so it's more them getting a need met than them actually really striving to work on something to have a relationship or to really start to pursue a relationship. I'm not sure if any other moderators want to say anything. If not, Mercedes, you can go again.
Yes, I have something that I wanted to share. I also believe that when it comes to ghosting, like what you shared about the accountability, the other side of it is I believe that a lot of people tend to ghost because it's almost like a let me get you before you get me type of thing, where it's let me cut off this relationship, let me flee from accountability, let me flee from maturity and responsibility. I don't want to do it anymore, so I'm just going to assert my right and just cut the relationship off. I'm going to cut this person off, and and all of that stuff. And then we've kind of like normalized it today, where it's almost being promoted as a do you and take care of your mental health type of thing, instead of really shifting and having those conversations, instead of shifting in not only having conversations, but having healthy conversations and having that accountability that you need, that would truly shift you in your relationships, that would shift you in different things, if that's relationships or whatever, romantic relationships, I should say, if that's friendships or those who God is calling in your life. But that's something that came into mind because I've experienced being ghosted before, and I was in a relationship where I knew that things were over. God was telling me, I truly just had a choice, and I had a choice that I did not want to walk with that person into them changing, or into, or being in a place where I'm walking with them where they're maturing and I'm walking with them in that. I didn't want to be a part of that. So I decided, I searched it out, and at the right time, I was, pretty much going to just, have that conversation and break things off. But, that conversation didn't happen initially because the person just pretty much ghosted me, and they didn't say anything. I was calling, I was texting and everything. And even when it came to that, later on, like over a year later, we had a conversation, and that person apologized. But one thing that they said was, they said I was very immature for doing that, but I already knew that you were going to break up with me, so I knew that I could not handle that mentally or emotionally, so I just decided to ghost. I decided to remove myself. And although it wasn't right, I did it anyway. So I was just so baffled by that, because ghosting, even if you're breaking soul ties, and I'm not trying to go too far, Apostle, but even if you're breaking soul ties and things with the person, and you're praying about it, it's time that you should break things off or whatever. When that person ghosts you, it's like a different type of offense, because it actually opens up, and this is the revelation that God gave to me, is that it opens up a door in the spirit that you can't, that it's like, it's not impossible to shut, but it's very hard to shut, because it opens up a door of wondering what you did wrong, wondering if you're just that bad of a person that someone couldn't give you the respect and honor to just have a conversation that, okay, all right, we just go our separate ways. But it's just like a level of dishonor where it's like, I don't even care how you might feel. I'm going to protect myself, and and I'm going to think about myself and remove myself from the situation, and just like poof, be gone, instead of just being confrontational and just having that conversation. So it was just very interesting, because like on the other side, the person could be a good person, but it's like a selfish type thing that goes on, where they're like, what, I'm just gonna remove myself. I don't care. I'm gonna get them before they get me. I already know it's coming, so I don't even want to have the conversation or whatever. But for the person that's getting ghosted, it actually opens up a door, and it was I'll be honest, it was very hard for me to shut it, and it was very hard for me to move on and get that closure that I needed, because that door felt like it was open, and my mind was wandering, and really the enemy was, the devil was using that against me through psychological warfare, emotional warfare, and it's almost tormenting, because you're left wondering what happened, and just truly wanting that closure. And but that's what I wanted to share, because when you shared about accountability and maturity, those are the two things that were highlighted to me, even in that situation.
Thank you for sharing. Mercedes?
Yeah, I think what Renita shared was really important, because a lot of people don't consider the spiritual ramifications of ghosting. And so when you think of a ghost, and you think of somebody who is literally disappearing out of your life, but they have brought their own challenges, their own issues, their own trauma, and left you to deal with that, that can definitely be a very weighty situation. And so half of the time, like Renita has shared, is spent trying to search out what you did wrong in the situation. Who are you supposed to be? How are you supposed to take authority over the situation? And really questioning sometimes your own identity and what you have done in the situation. And so I think that it can definitely, obviously have an impact on you naturally, but spiritually, it does open up a door where the enemy can use that to bring unnecessary mental warfare and really cause you to come into a place to where you can become the offender. And so, most people would say, well, if I was ghosted, I would never do that to somebody else. But I see, time and time again, where people are in situations where they have been treated this way and have experienced this type of rejection. And so when they go forward, they don't necessarily do it purposely, but subconsciously in their mind, they're saying, well, I'm only going to let this person get so far. If they start to act this way, I'm just going to cut them off. If they start to do this, I'm just going to, break ties, and I'm just going to move forward. And we do that in a place of, oh, this is self-care. I'm taking care of myself. I'm doing all of these things. But we don't necessarily know that we have not cleansed from the offense. We have not forgiven the person. We've not released the person. And so we think that we are, empowering ourselves and liberating ourselves when that womb is still open, and it's perpetuating in our future relationships and keeping us from really being free and liberated in our future relationships. So I think that was really important, what Renita has shared.
Yeah, I just wanted to share something as well. As Mercedes was sharing, when you think about a ghost, pretty much what happens is the physical presence of the person is no longer there, but there's a lingering happening. And so when you think about a ghost, when you think about it in movies or just even in real life, it's a like a lingering presence or something that is hovering around. And so when a person ghosts you, their physical presence is no longer there, but the things that they have left behind, like she shared, the soul tie is still there. The whatever experiences you had together, your laughs, your fun times, your bad times, all of those things are still left lingering behind. And so that's one of the reasons why this ghost thing is so bad, because it leaves that lingering presence, which then opens up the doors, like Renita and Mercedes were saying. I just believe that ghosting in this culture is a manifestation of imbalance, freedom, and imbalance. Because within this culture, this generation, the thing that is so prominent is being, like Mercedes shared, is the self-care, mental health, and wanting to speak your voice, your privilege, and you're wanting to be able to make your own decisions and things like that. And I believe that there is a imbalance in that area, which shows up in various ways in this generation, and one of them being the ghosting culture and the canceling culture, because there's no balance in what that mental health looks like. And so there is that selfishness and that self-focus that doesn't take into consideration how your actions affect others. So even when we hear about millennials saying, well, if my job don't care about my mental health, I ain't showing up no more. I'm just going to quit. But there, and we understand the importance of mental health and how these jobs do not own us and things like that. However, there is no reflection on or consideration on how personal decisions affect other people. And so I believe that there is that imbalance, and there's that immaturity there, and that inability to have find healthiness in our ability to make decisions, and in our ability to really process how those decisions affect other people's lives. So I just wanted to share
that. That was awesome. That was powerful, Nina, especially sharing about the imbalance of self-care, the imbalance of decisions that we make. We have an imbalanced freedom where we think, we could just do whatever we want, and we can claim that it's self-care. But really, self-care is about making sure the word says we are to esteem others higher than ourselves. And so how I treat myself is really how I should treat other people. And so I wouldn't want to be ghosted. I would want people to say, this relationship is not working out for me, or I just feel like at this time this is not a relationship for me, and then move forward versus just not talking to someone. Now, self-care in ghosting would be if this is an abusive relationship, if this is a drama or conflict constant conflict relationship, and cutting it off is best for my safety, for my well-being. I've tried to talk to this person. I've considered counseling. I've considered, all these other things. This person isn't willing to change. And the only way that I can get out of this relationship is to just cut it off. That's self-care. But when I'm communicating with someone, I'm giving the impression that I'm growing with you, that we are working on some type of foundation, whether that be acquaintanceship of getting to know one another, or a friendship, building a friendship of getting to know one another, or even pursuing in a greater fashion of some type of romantic relationship. If I'm giving those impressions and then I just stop all of a sudden with being not having this relationship anymore or wanting it, then that's not self-care. That's selfishness. And there's a huge difference. And a lot of times, people, they also will ghost for fear. They have a fear of the unknown. They have a fear of where this relationship is going to head. A lot of people will say, yeah, I'm ready for a relationship. I'm ready for Boo to come. And then when Boo come, they start to freak out. Oh my God, do I have enough time for Boo? Oh my God, is this going to get in the way of me and God? Is this going to get in the way of my job and my goals? Is this really what I want? And then they start to, go through all of that. Or they start to, then they ghost because they have fear there. Or people, they are not prioritized, because if you say that, you, especially if you are somebody who's lived a length of singleness for a long length of time, and then you say, okay, I'm gonna pursue relationships, and you start to pursue a relationship and realize that relationships are work. Everybody say that. Relationships are work. And they take sacrifice, and it takes time to build relationships. And so if you feel like somebody's getting in the way of your goals, or you're not making time for that relationship, what have you, or you're just ghosting on that relationship because everything else is being prioritized, but the relationship is not being prioritized into what you are saying that you want, then that's an imbalance too, because you're wanting your cake and eat it too, but you're wanting me to sacrifice my time or be there when you have time or make time, but when it's but as far as you actually making sure that I'm a part of your life, you're not doing that. And so that could be a form of the reason why people ghost. And so they ghost because they think you are pulling them away from their life goals, and that's not true. You just said you want relationship or you want friendship, but when it came to building friendship, acquaintanceship, or a romantic relationship, you didn't want to put in the work to do it, because relationships are work. We need to do a room on that. And then also people do it to avoid conflict. They just, they don't want to deal with whatever conflict that may have arisen, or with hard questions. People don't like hard questions. They don't like to be questioned. Even in this day and age, when you start to go past the surface, then people want to close up. And it's like healthy relationships are built in depth. They're built in a solid foundation. So if I'm not being willing to build a solid foundation, or a foundation that can stand, then the relationship is not going to stand. So people like the fun part of the relationship and getting to know one another. What's your favorite color? What kind of car you want to drive? What's your, whatever. But then when we start getting into those deep questions, then the text message goes silent. The private message goes silent, or what have you, because people like the thrill and they like the pursuit, and even just how that feel, but they don't like the depth of the work that is needed to sustain the relationship. Because me knowing your favorite color is not going to sustain in controversial times. Me knowing, what kind of car you want to drive when you get rich, that's not going to sustain in hard times. Okay, that's not going to sustain a relationship. Me knowing personal things about you, that's going to sustain the relationship. Me knowing what your life goals are, and what your standards are for a relationship, and how you communicate, and if you communicate, and what has your communication past been like. All of those things are important and key to sustaining a relationship. And then so let me stop there and let someone else on the stage want to say something. I don't know, Mercedes, if you want to say something, or
I can share more. I was just going to give Corinza and Davida the opportunity to ask a question if they had anything that they wanted to share.
Okay, Davida.
Okay, I'm sorry. Hi, everybody. So I have 2 questions for anybody to answer. How do you create boundaries with someone that's an introvert and extrovert?
That's a good question. I'm an introvert and an extrovert. Let me think about that. How do you create boundaries with someone that's what's going on in the relationship? Can we ask that?
I'm also, I think, as you know, Apostle, I'm probably both. But once I do get engaged in a person's life, I'm involved. But if it's depending on the situation, but when it comes to ministry, we're all human. So if I'm reaching out, everything is good, when it comes to being at church and we're able to converse and get things out or what have you. But then when church is out and I barely hear from them and I'm trying to get feedback and it's just nothing, but you kind of pick up from familiar places, like, okay, maybe this is just who they are. Because as you guys were saying, a person can easily get offended, or okay, I don't know how to take this. And even if you don't have any insecurities in that area, dealing with certain people like that, if they have more than the other, it can create insecurities in that person. And you start to wonder, like, what did I do? Or, you know what I'm saying? Like, so, and if you're protecting yourself, as a person should, at some point, you got to back off. It's like trying to expect something out of someone that's not them. You know what I'm saying? Like, so
okay.
I watch, and even though it's not helping, but I sit back and I observe, not to judge, but to observe for my protection. Like, it's like trying to, I think for me, I can find myself getting upset, not really upset, but offended, I guess. And the defense will come later if it looks like it's, if I'm allowing it to get to me. And that's only because I'll put expectations on someone. But if I sit back and observe them long enough, like how they're engaging with other people that are quote unquote close to them, I'm like, okay, I'm going to have to make a choice and accept them for who they are, so that I can respect them and not allow what they're not giving me of what I know they should be giving me. They're not doing it, so that I'm not mad at them. Or, does that make sense?
Yes. So one of the things I would do is I would first ask God, who is this person to me, and what type of relationship are we to have? So that sets a standard for me. So I would ask that. And then I would ask that person what, let's define our relationship. It sounds like you've been interacting with this person long enough where you could say, let's define this. Is this just an acquaintanceship? Is this a friendship? Is this a spiritual covenant relationship? Or is this something that would lead into romance? And what does that look like at church and at home, or what have you. And then that way you are setting some boundaries and some standards for your expectations, but also based on what God is saying. Because you can't just look at people and see them interacting with other people and say, well, they doing that with other people, but they're not doing that with me. Because what the relationship they may have with them may be different than what they're supposed to have with you. And so the only people that can define that is you and God, and you and that person, what have you. Then also, we don't know how long they known that person, yada yada yada. So I would ask God, who is this person to me, and allow him to give me revelation of that first. And then based on what God is saying, I will talk to that person and say, we do great at church. We interact, we have fun, we are able to, fellowship, do worship together, minister together. And we say that we want friendship outside of church, but we don't develop it. So can we set some goals to do that? Like, commit to text messaging, a couple of times a week, or talking on the phone a couple of times a week, or what. And then you are allowing the relationship to evolve based on what you two have agreed to work on. And then that's setting the boundaries and the standards of that. Now, if you do that and then that person does not engage that way, then you have to respect that this person is not really willing to do the work to be in a relationship with you outside of church, and respect that, and break any soul ties that you have already developed with that person, and move forward and just respect it for the relationship that it is. This is a church friendship, a church fellowship, and that's it, period, the end. And I'm good with that. And so and go ahead, I can't hear you.
Does it also apply to ministry as well?
Yes, I that applies to ministry as well. So anybody that's in ministry with me, or in a personal relationship with me outside of ministry, we have defined what that looks like. Whether I am their leader of the church, or I am their mentor, or I am their spiritual mother, or I'm a seasonal mentor, or their counselor. We define that. Or I'm their friend. We define that, and then we work on that based on that. Now, I have a lot of people that we have defined that. Myself personally, I am I work on my relationships. So, anybody could come to me and they say, you don't got time for me. You need to spend time with me. You need to fix it, whatever. You need to get it together. And I'll work on that, or whatever. Or I could go to them and say, hey, I text you, you don't receive the encouragement, you don't receive the support, you don't reach out. Only time I hear from you is when I'm texting you, yada yada yada. So if they don't allow me to be whatever I need to be in their life, I respect that and I move forward. And I may only interact with them if God leads me. So, even though I may supposed to be a mentor for that season, or a spiritual parent, or a leader that's more involved, or a friend, if they don't reciprocate, I respect where they are. Sometimes people do that because they fear relationships. Some people don't know how to lean and actually communicate and engage and evolve relationships. Some people just don't want to do the work, or they don't regard that relationship for what they say or claim that they say they want, or they claim that God is saying. And so you have to respect that. Also, if it's ministry, sometimes ministers are very busy. And so you do have to ask God, can this leader give me what I need? Or what have you? Can this leader, if God is saying that this leader is supposed to be present and available in your daily life, but that leader is not giving you that, then you need to be asking God, can I get this from somewhere else? Because this leader, we all have free will and we all have a choice. And you could say, because this leader is not making themselves available, and I would like to go forward in having greater covering or greater personal interactions with my leader, or whatever it is they're supposed to be to you. I want that, and can I move forward and you bringing someone else in my life to bring that to me? And often if it's about free will and that person just not doing their part, God will allow you to stop pursuing that relationship. If it's something else, God will say that person is busy, that person is this or that or whatever, pray for them, yada yada yada, or go and talk to them again. He'll give you direction or what have you. But it's okay to have expectations for people that you're supposed to be doing ministry with, especially if God is leading you and that person to have a walk together for a specific reason or purpose. It's okay. So and like I said, leaders can get busy. I get busy a lot too. But I also tell the people in my ministry know they can interrupt me. So, and some of them will say, okay, I need your undivided attention right now, or whatever. So, or they'll say, can I schedule a time with you or what have you? But they do know that they can come to me, they can, talk to me or what have you. And sometimes I'll chuckle because I know, okay, I've been busy and they need time right now and they're getting their time, or whatever. And that's perfectly fine. God gives you grace for people that he put into your life. And in myself too, there are things that I do as a leader or as a spiritual parent or what have you that they have to have grace for as well. So, yes, even with leaders. Does that answer your question?
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you. Carenza?
Hello, everyone. So I have a question about ghosting and also like the boundaries, setting boundaries and standards that I'll tie into it. As far as my question is, even back from your childhood, let's just say with family, or the lack of, like if a person didn't have a father or a father figure and basically they didn't see that or have that love reciprocated from a father or a mother, and basically like a ghost, like these people are ghosts, could that affect the person when they get older in as far as in their relationships with other people, or even in general with different people as far as mates, or even relationships with different people in the family, or even ministry relationships?
Yes, mother issues, father issues, a lack of bonding when you're born, a lack of bonding and really having that healthy parenting interaction as you grow up can definitely affect how you have relationships as an adult and affect ghosting. Many people who have been abandoned, have been orphaned, have been abused, have not been raised by their mothers and fathers, they really do need to take the time to learn healthy relationship skills, healthy conflict resolution skills, healthy emotional wellness. They need to get delivered and healed from their past traumas so that they can engage people not from their experience, but from the true wellness and identity of who they are. And a lot of times when we have not healed those wounds, we end up doing what Mercedes said, offending people the way that we were offended. And we don't necessarily try to do that. So for myself, I was adopted at age 2 weeks old. And so I had to learn how to, really be present in my relationships active in my relationships. I had to learn and decide, this is what I want in my friendships. This is what I want in my relationships with people. And I had to practice that with the people in my life so that I would do that. And even when growing up, I had great relationships. I was my aunt raised me and she loved me. I didn't really want for things. I was loved, I was esteemed, I was valued. But then even just in my personal relationships, I had the same friends since 7th grade. But when it came to people outside of that little clique, I was a thrill seeker. So I did a lot of thrill seeking stuff. I didn't really have a mindset or care for how my actions hurt other people. I was quick with the tongue, so I could whip people with my tongue. I could lash out at you and you thought I hit you in your face or something, or cut you or stabbed you in your heart. I just didn't have that. So when I got saved and I really began to just see some of the things that I did, I began to ask God, to change me. Then I began to pursue what I really wanted in my relationships and how I really wanted to care for people. And so I had to learn how to do that, and then just even heal from the fact that initially I didn't have bonding, because when I came out of the womb, my mom didn't want me. And so for whatever time until my aunt decided to get me, it was kind of like, what do we do with this baby? Because nobody knew that my mom was pregnant. And so when they did find out, I was just a surprise that the family had to figure out what to do with. And so that was still in my soul, even though my aunt came and got me in 2 weeks, and I lived with her for until I became an adult. And so, but that part of my identity and that part of my soul had to be healed. And then I had to deal with the way that had kind of shaped some of my behaviors and, in my behavior processing. And so I had to change and practice living a different way, practice what I wanted to see in my relationships. And even when I got saved, and I began to really do ministry and things like that, I saw a whole bunch of stuff in ministry that I didn't like, and or what have you. And so as I got my ministry and as I started to do ministry, I took those things as learning tools of what not to do. And so I'm very mindful of how I care for my those in my ministry, care for their heart. I'm very mindful about what I say, even though I may speak truth, I may give constructive criticism. I'm very careful with their heart. I'm very careful in making sure, they may still feel cut or what have you, but they know that I love them. They're always esteemed and supported and accoladed, so they don't always hear, what they're not doing right from me. I encourage and empower and support them and accolade them for the smallest thing. I'm always finding something to say that they're doing great about, or to compliment them and empower them in their destiny, in their calling, and just in their identity. And that was something that I didn't get. Only time I really heard from my leaders was when somebody was complaining about my peculiarity, my red hair, my green hair, my yellow hair, and my wild ways, which were spiritual, but it didn't really gel with the with the way the church was. And so, so those things you have to make up in your mind. What do I want out of relationships? You also have to be okay with teaching people how to treat you. So even as people are coming in your DM and they're hitting you up and trying to talk to you or what have you, if they talk to you all day, one day, and then the next day they're not there, or what have you, and then the next day they are, you need to make sure who you're dealing with. Okay, I'm dealing with someone that really, this is just them, they just trying to find somebody to talk to. This is not really somebody, I need to be careful with this person. And then if you're talking to them for a week and you're talking to them consistently, and then they ghost you because you asked them a question or whatever, and they didn't really want to answer that question, so they waited a day or two, and then they come back and they like, hey, what's up? And they ain't said nothing about that question that you asked them, and they trying to move on. No. First of all, you've been gone for a whole week, bro. Or whatever. You need to call them out on that. And then you need to let them know this is not how I communicate. And if they say, well, I've been busy and yada, yada, yada. Come on now. You make time for what you want to make time for. And so if we're about to build a friendship or what have you, you can at least say, hey, I saw that question, but I don't have time to answer it right now, but I'm going to get back to it, or whatever. Everyone in my life know, whether they are an acquaintance or a friend or a family member or spiritual family or whatever, that, hey, I'm going to answer this text eventually. Or what have you. And then even when I answer it, I'll say, hey, I was busy today, and that's why I didn't get back with you, or what have you. But they already know that at some point I'm going to answer this text, because that's the expectation that I gave them, because that's the expectation I want when I send a text, or what have you. And then they know I was busy or I was doing this, not I just didn't answer that, or what have you. And so I think we have to learn how to care for one another's heart and want to care for people's heart. Want to care for making sure we are not imposing trauma upon people, because we don't know their background situation. We don't know what's going on behind that text message or that DM or whatever the case may be. And there may be some people that you might have to get rough with or whatever the case may be. But even in that, with the girls in my ministry, if somebody come up in their DM and they start talking crazy and on, I'll say, you need to let that person down easy, but you need to put them in their place, but let them down easy, because they somebody else's husband. They may not be yours. They somebody else's husband, whatever, or they're somebody else's member. So they may not be a member of this ministry, but they're somebody else's member. And so I kind of talk to them that way, because even though, we want to make sure people know, how they need to treat us, we also want to care for people's heart. So I pray that answer your question, Carenza.
Oh yeah, very much so. Good
all right.
Stuff.
Okay, awesome.
The practice is the key.
That practice is the key. And you have to want to have healthy interactions and healthy relationships. You have to want to be able to go to somebody and say, this hurt my feelings, or can I talk to you about this? Or, you have to practice that and want that. And then you do that with people, they'll start doing that with you. So even with me, a lot of people have learned how to have healthy interactions and relationships, because I am big on that. And then I'm big on allowing people to come to me and say, you hurt my feelings. That wasn't funny. That hurt me. I allow them to come and say that to me. I allow them to come and speak their truth to me, even if they don't like what I said, or, even if they needed that constructive criticism or what have it, the case may be. And so you practice that, and then people will practice that with you. And if you are a parent on here, you need to be doing that with your children. It's no way that your children should be growing up in a house where they don't have a voice, where they can't come and share their heart with you, especially in this day and age when suicide is so prevalent and kids are hanging themselves in the bathroom and taking pills and on and on. You want that kid to be able to come to you and say whatever they want to say. Okay, even if they are in the wrong, and then you want to ask God to give you insight on how to help them be accountable for their actions, but you want them to be able to come and speak truth to you about whatever it is they're feeling or thinking or that's going on. They may have went off on that teacher because that teacher had been bullying them for a week. You don't know. But if they can't come to you and tell you that, and all you want them to do is obey the teacher, you're not going to know. You're not going to know. You're not going going to know what's happening to them in the bathroom, that they face being put in the toilet or whatever, if you're telling them they need to go to school and be tough and they need to fight and they need to, whatever. Do they need to stand up for themselves? Sure enough, because I'm from East St. Louis, I believe you should stand up for yourself. Yeah, I do. But you want them to be able to come and tell you what's going on so they can get some keys for how to stand up for themselves. Because in that moment, obviously, they may not have the keys, or they may be too terrorized or what have you. Or it could be several kids ganging up on them at one time, and they not know Shaquita, so they can't fight 3 or 4 people at one time, or whatever. And Shaquita is dead. Taquita is alive. All right. So, anyone on the stage want to share?
I think what you just shared is very key, especially when it comes to like parents and things. Because one thing that came to mind is, even creating a healthy culture within the home through communication, where even parents are repenting to their children if they did something wrong or overstepped the boundary, where there's also healthy boundaries between children and their parents as well. Because oftentimes, especially in certain households, it's whatever happened in this house, stay in this house, or because I said so, or the parent, we all make mistakes, but a parent making a mistake and truly the child was telling the truth, or just wanting, an explanation of why they were being reprimanded. But I don't believe it's been normalized for parents to go back to their children and say, hey, I'm sorry. I just want to apologize to you because I raised my voice, or I want to apologize to you because I made a mistake, or I want to apologize to you because I accused you of this, but you didn't do that. But I think that is so key, especially in this hour when suicide is very high, or there's not really that open communication where children just know that they can truly share in a safe space, and they won't necessarily get in trouble for sharing whatever is going on. Whereas, where they might be scared to tell on their friend, or they might be scared to even tell on themselves and what's truly going on at school, at work, or whatever it is. So I just wanted to share that.
Awesome. That was excellent. Mercedes?
Yes, I think that was so good and so key. And really, whether it's as parents or whatever role that you're playing, you have to really be the person that you needed in that situation. If it's you dealing with your child, be the parent that you needed when you were a child, when you wanted to communicate, when you wanted to have a voice. And really, a lot of people don't necessarily have a atmosphere where they can have healthy interactions and where people are really respecting their boundaries and things of that nature. But I hear very clearly that it's important to create the atmosphere. If you don't have people in your life who respect your boundaries, who want to practice healthy conflict resolution with you, they're not listening to those things, they're being abusive, all of those things like we shared earlier. In no way does this condone that. You have to make the decision and pray and see if that's a relationship that needs to be cut off. However, you have to show people how you want to be treated. So really making sure that you are being consistent with practicing that, and making sure that you're consistently telling people how you feel and that you're honoring your own voice. And then 2, making sure that you are even praying and asking God, send healthy relationships to me. Send people who are able to help me get from this place of trauma to a place to where I can actually have these healthy interactions. I will speak for myself personally. That is a prayer that I prayed before I, stepped into the relationships that I have now. And if it had not been for a safe place to be able to heal, to be able to use my voice, there would still be challenges likely today, because if you're not around people who respect and honor your voice, it's going to be hard for you to come forth in that and to truly heal. And so practicing in a safe place and not with people who are going to re-traumatize you is very important for your healing journey. And so I just really, really recommend
surround yourself with healthy people. They don't have to be perfect people, but they have to be people who are willing to learn how to love you the way that God says you need to be loved. They have to be willing to journey with you. They have to be willing to just respect you. You know, respect is a big thing that people don't really have because there's so much entitlement in relationships. And so I just would really urge you to really take that accountability upon yourself to create an atmosphere to where healing is conducive and you're able to really receive the type of relationships that you want and learn, you know, and grow. And it is a process and it does take time. So don't get discouraged. If you set a boundary and somebody crosses it and you don't respond the way that you want to respond or think that you should respond, it takes time. It took time for that trauma to be there. It took time for you not to be able to communicate effectively. So it's going to take time to switch that over and begin to live from a place of healthier boundaries. So I just want to encourage you all that God does have those relationships for you and to really seek him for them and then begin to implement some of the things that were shared and practice what was given to them.
Yes, that was excellent. And even as you two are talking, I saw how, you know, when we're growing up and just in general interactions, when we don't actually communicate and resolve conflicts and resolve situations or talk them through, that's a form of ghosting. Because you're just going to go on with life like that situation never happened. And so it leaves a void there. It leaves an aura there. And then when the next situation happens, you're thinking about the previous one because you're like, well, we didn't resolve that one or what have you. And I can just see even marriages that way where there hasn't really been a sitting down to really discuss things or what have you. And so, you know, as conflicts or challenges or concerns continue to ensue, there's that aura there because the ghost happened the previous time and the other time before that and the other time before that. And so there's all these unresolved issues piling up on current issues. And so you really want to weed ghosting out of your relationship. Also, I want to say that you are never, you know, there is a place of unhealthy emotions that you could get where you could be overly emotional or whatever. But if you're in relationships where you can't express yourself or that person don't want to talk about emotions, then you really want to examine that relationship and see what's going on. Because if you can't express yourself and share your thoughts and your concerns, then that's not a healthy environment. Okay. And if you're in a relationship and it's with a man and they're saying, well, I just don't express myself, and especially if they're a godly man, emotions are not, they don't have nothing to do with gender. God is a spirit and he got emotions. He say, I'm angry. He say, I delight in you. I love you. Come be with me. Come abide in me. He can express himself. So we're made in his image, man and female. That's biblical. That's what the Bible said. They said it in Genesis. He made man and female, man and woman in his image. And so there is no men, you know, there are some characteristics in the way that we act that are based on our gender. But when it comes to emotions, we have learned and taught men how not to express their emotions, and we have taught women to express their emotions, and we have told men it's not okay. It's not okay for you to express your emotions. We told women it's okay to express your emotions. And so how we going to have a relationship like that? I have no idea. All right. And so if you're not expressing yourself, but I'm expressing myself, and then I got to figure out in what you're saying, I got to go all the way in heaven on the other side of 3rd Street, down the Gold Road, just to figure out what you're saying, then how is this in a relationship? And so we have to come out of these false lies and perceptions of these self-help group books And we have to come into the truth of our identity, and that is we're made in God's image. Emotions are healthy. They are gauges. They help us to gauge where we are, and then we take those emotions to God and we share how we really feel so he can give us truth. And then we come back together and we discuss our challenges and our truths that God gave us. We take accountability for what we did. That person take accountability for what they did. We set goals and standards to do better next time. Okay, but to act like that a man can't share, no, you need to come out of agreement with that, because you can't build a solid foundation in a marriage or a friendship without two people agreeing and having healthy communication. Okay, so you really want to, if you have boys, you really want to teach them how to express themselves and let them know that it's responsible to be able to gauge your emotions. It's not unhealthy. Okay, and then you want to teach your daughters how to have healthy emotions, balanced emotions, how to know when they are overly emotional maybe, versus having a balanced emotion where they can process through. And it's okay if they have over emotions. You can teach them how to pray through that and even separate and heal whatever is unhealthy there versus what is really reality and going on. A lot of times emotions too in a woman could be tied to their hormones. And so even growing up, we have hormones that's growing up with us. All right. Men have hormones too. Okay. And so but our emotions are firing off differently. Our hormones are firing out differently. So you may need to pray over your daughter over that. Okay. And then you want to pray over something that may be trying to attach to her, to make her overly sensitive or whatever the case may be. So you want to be mindful of those things as well. And even in yourself. Okay, so you want to pray for your emotions to balance, and then you want to pray for any things that is trying to tie to your emotions or who you are as a woman and make you overly sensitive, or where you can't process your emotions in a healthy way, where somebody would think you're too emotional or you're too this, or whatever the case may be. But your emotions are important, whether they are too or not there at all. They are important, and they need to be gauged, and you need to be able to identify them and process them. Another way to process your emotions is to write them down. So you're writing down your thoughts and feelings about that relationship, about things that you want to say if you're having a challenge or a problem with someone, and or what have you. When you see it on paper, you can process it a little bit better. You can process your words and how you want to share it a little bit better. And then you can you will be able to have that conversation. You can also start conversations this way, and this is what I do. I'll say, I don't have the correct words to say right now, but I do know that I need to have this conversation, and so I want you to not take my abrupt words personally, but hear my heart as I'm saying what I'm saying. And then that allows them to allow me to say whatever I'm going to say, however it's going to come out, and then we're going to process it together. Okay? And so that way I don't have to be perfect in what I'm saying, but I still can share what I'm saying, and we can process it together. So it may not be shared the perfect way, but it's shared in a way where it can be received. Anyone on stage have anything to share? Just a second. Antoine, you might have to go out the room and come back in, because I tried to let you up, but I'm not sure what's going on. Oh, you're on there. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, I just wanted to add something about the boys and the guys. We're never really taught how to process our emotions. And the way that we're forced to process our emotions is through sports. I don't know if anybody really pays attention, but a lot of times when a guy really has an emotional concern, they take it out in a competitive way because we don't know how to process it. We're never taught. We're always taught to hold it in, and then we have to exert it with energy some kind of way. So we run, we work out, we go play football, we play basketball, we box, we do all these aggressive, violent things just to allow the emotions to process through, because a lot of times we have all that energy and we don't know what to do with it. And then that's a little bit of reason why we have a lot of violence in the community, because a lot of boys don't know how to process emotions. And what I've learned as a father, and I have my son, he's 3 years old, and I tell you, he processes his emotions almost like I do as a grown adult. And it's interesting because he was raised, him and my daughter's 5, they were raised learning how to process and affiliate what they're feeling and what that is, and to associate, is this mad, is this angry, and regardless of what's going on, we made sure that they knew what feeling that they were having so that they can express it. And I remembered I never had that. I can tell you that right now. And what I would do to process my emotions, I would go silent. You might be saying it as ghosting, but I would go silent. And what that did was it tore me up on the inside to where I had a lot of aggression. And the only way that I could release it was being destructive, compete on the basketball court, or play football, contact football. And that was the only way I could release the energy, so that I can actually feel better to actually then say, man, I was just frustrated about what just happened. And you never know how long that might take just to come to that realization. And I think, when you open the door as far as relationships, we might have to ask that question, like, is everything okay? And walk us through how to process. Because if you really know us, or if you're starting to know us, you will begin to start, realizing like, hey, I'm noticing you might seem a little frustrated, because you might be able to identify what we're feeling. We don't even know. And so that's the one thing I also wanted to bring up too, is that we can't assume with each other, right? We can't assume what is going on just because a person is silent. We got to ask those questions, because even that person might not even know what's going on with them, and they're just trying to figure it out, and that's why they're silent sometimes, especially for me, and when we're emotional. So it's okay to be able to ask the question and say, are you feeling frustrated? Are you feeling kind of sad or angry or disappointed? Because if you say the right word, we might say, you know what, you're absolutely right. I did feel some kind of way, but I didn't know really what that was. And that's another way to invite a man to be expressive to his emotions, by actually just asking the question. Asking the questions of what you notice, and be gentle with it, right? Be gentle with it, because all of our life we've probably been roughed up about it. Our father figure or an uncle or somebody, hit us, just to say, hey, toughen up, be a man, that kind of thing. But really in reality, we need a little comfort, right? We need a little pat on the back, we need a little hug, right? Someone to hold our hand, rub our arm or something, whatever the case might be, just to let us know it's okay. You don't have to be, so hard on yourself. So that's all I wanted to mention, because that was a good point and a good topic, and I just wanted to add a male's perspective on a reality that really goes on.
Thank you, Antoine. That was excellent, and thank you so much for sharing that, because that was an excellent example. And I definitely agree. Asking, what you said, asking a man questions definitely help. I also would say that when you start to realize that you're building, whether it's a friendship or a romantic relationship with someone, you want to start immediately implementing ways to communicate. So I would encourage you to implement truth days. And this is where every week at the same time, Tuesday at 12 o'clock, you all are going to sit down and you're going to share some accolades with one another, what you think that you all are doing well together, and some concerns you have about the relationship, because that also teaches the man healthy communication, and it does it in a safe place where he isn't where there's no conflict. So we're not conflicting right now. We're exploring our relationship and how we could grow. And so as you would do that, you will learn to be listeners of one another. You will learn to respect what that other person say. You will learn how to speak your truth if you don't agree, or you will learn to be able to hear it from their perspective and see how they are processing it, because even though it may not be the truth of your motives, it still doesn't necessarily mean that it's not the truth of your behavior or what have you. And so then also, it may be a truth to them because of the way they're processing it, but it may not be your heart. And so you all can hear one another on that, and then recognize, okay, this is not really this person doing this to me. This is my past issue, but because they did it, it rubbed me the wrong way. And I can recognize that, and then I can separate my offense from, from the reality that my offense is from the past and not the present. You can search it out that way, or or whatever, or you all can agree to set goals to do things differently based on what you are communicating or what have you. And then from there, it just produces an atmosphere to be able to communicate and share or what have you. You can also set some standards for how you want to communicate. So if I'm a man and I'm not used to communicating, this is new for me, so let me set some standards. Okay, I'm going to agree to talk about every conflict that we have, but at first I would like to have a few minutes to process it by myself, and then I promise that I'll come back in the room at that set time and discuss it. If I'm still upset after a few minutes, then I'm going to come and tell you I still need some time in my man cave for 30 minutes to just search it out or what have you. And I'm going to go in my man cave and I'm going to calm down and I'm going to process it, but then I'm going to come back and I'm going to talk to you about it. Or it could be the woman, or whatever. If either person need a time out before they actually start communicating. Maybe they get angry too much, and they, instead of lashing out verbally or physically, let me go take a time out, process, and come back or what have you. But I do promise to come back and to discuss it or what have you. You can make pacts with one another, and then you can sit down and talk to one another. Maybe you don't start off talking initially, and you separate and go journal, and then I bring my journal back to you and I let you read how I feel. Okay, and then we process one another what we have written about the situation and our perception or what have you. But you want to start somewhere with implementing tools in your foundation, so that 10 years from now you don't be trying to learn how to communicate after you done broke one another's heart for 10 years, because you either didn't talk about stuff or you yelled and screamed the whole time and didn't resolve anything. And so wherever you are, but you want to put that in your foundation, okay, with your mate. And even if you're already married, you've been married for 25 years, you could still restructure your foundation. You could gut out those old ways and commit to doing something new. Relationships are what we make of them. They are what we make of them. They're what we make of them. So if we keep doing the same old thing, we're going to get the same old results. If we do something new, we'll get new results. But relationships are what we make them be. Okay? So anyone else on the stage want to share? Or if not, I'm going to go to Andrea. Andrea?
Hey, Apostle, and everyone. Apostle, I know I had sent you some questions. I had another question about something I just heard you say a moment ago. But so basically, what I was hearing you say about, like, when you're trying to express yourself to people, and you're the approach that you're taking to let them know that you don't, that you're going to express what you have to say. Trying to forewarn them that, hey, I don't mean to come across a certain way. I just really need to tell you how I feel. And I've been having that issue as of late. So I can say that in the past, I'm still working on my communication, but I know I've come a long way because in the past, I had a very bad problem with my temper, and I was never a violent person, but I didn't grow up knowing how to really express myself to anybody. I either held things in or I went off. So when I became an adult, that was how I dealt with people, because I always assumed that people know what they're doing, and I was never really good at giving people the benefit of the doubt or assuming that, oh, maybe it's not what I think. So when things would happen, I would just go off. But of course, as I got a little older, I started, taking a different approach. Of course, I was given advice and things from counselors that I saw in the past on how to approach communicating when someone has offended me or whatever. And I've been finding that in some situations I've still had that problem. And like, I guess on the spiritual side, I know that in church we always go to that scripture in the Bible where it talks about what you're supposed to do if you're offended, and it tells you to go to that person first. And then I think it says if you go to them and it like doesn't resolve, you don't resolve it, you're supposed to bring a witness, I think. And then I think if it doesn't work out from that point, I think it says to bring them before the church. And it's like I'll try to approach it that way, and I still have had problems where people just could not. I kept running into people that just did not like to be confronted. So pretty soon it got to a point where it's like, okay, I didn't go off, I didn't blow up. Yes, I have a strong tone. Yes, I can come across strong because of the way that I sound. But like you said, Apostle, I will tell them that, hey, please don't take my tone as me yelling at you or attacking you. This is kind of new for me, but I am doing my best to be respectful and just tell you how I feel. And after doing all of that, thinking that, okay, I'm dealing with another sister or brother in Christ, we should be able to reason. I should be able to tell you, hey, this is how what you said came across or whatever. And we be able to, we be able to reach a resolve, and it will blow up into something else because the person just did not want to own what they did. It's like, here I am being the bigger person. I'm saying, listen, this. I can even say, well, you know what? If something I said was this or whatever, I could do that. But when it's time for the other person to do it, they can't do it. And in some cases, I had situations where people would try to flip things back on me. I had a leader, the last leader I was under, things did not end well. When I left their church last year, it did not end well. Me and the leader got into it because he knew about my mental health. He knew that I had anxiety. He knew I had PTSD and stuff. And all to avoid admitting where he went wrong and how he dealt with me and how he handled me, he tried to use the fact that I have a mental health condition to try to say that I didn't know what I was talking about. And he was trying to twist my words. And so at that point, the gloves were off. Like he kind of kept pushing me, and we got into it. I went off. I ain't gonna say what all I did, because as a leader, you probably be like, I know you didn't do that, but I said some things not hitting below the belt, but I spoke the truth, but I didn't speak it in the tone that I would have liked to do it. I didn't want the old Andrea to rise up, but I felt like I got pushed there in a sense. And so when I was hearing you talk tonight just about the communication factor, I was really trying to take note, because I'm sitting up here like, okay, I can say what made me go there. I can say what wasn't handled right, but I'm still trying to go back to me and say, okay, did I miss something? Was there something else I should have tried to approach it with or whatever? But that's an area I'm still working on, and I have gotten better. But it's like when a person tries to manipulate their way out of just owning and being honest, just like I'm trying to be honest, that makes it hard for me to stay in the vein of saying, okay, I'm still going to be calm, I'm still going to hear what you have to say. if you're trying to turn things on me, then I know how to turn up too. But I just don't. I know that's not the way to handle it. But I haven't been perfect, but I'm trying. But it's hard to do it with people that don't want to. They kind of let their pride get in the way, and it's just kind of hard to deal with that. But I don't even know what my question is no more. But I just wanted to express that and just see what you can kind of tell me as far as how to approach things going forward.
Thank you, Andrea, for sharing. I will say this: hurting people hurt people. I will also say that as a pastor, well, I'm not a pastor, but as a leader, as an apostle, uh, leaders need to learn healthy communication skills too. And so one of the things that we have going on in the church is when people come into church and they come to get saved or what have you, we throw a bunch of scriptures at one another, but as far as learning practical tools, taking the Bible and really applying the practical tools to resolve conflict, to teach people healthy communication skills, healthy emotional wellness, healthy interactions and relationship skills, healthy listening skills, we have failed in the church, okay? And so we end up communicating with one another how we would if we was in the world when we start to have conflict and challenges, which is kind of what you described. They went body with you, you turned around and went body with them. And so, unfortunately, that happens so much, and that's where a lot of church hurt has come from, and that's what we need to change. We need to start changing that, where people feel like they can come to us with their concerns, even if it's about us as leaders, and we can process through it with them. But we have, and where they could come to us and we don't use their issues against them. So, where I'm not looking at you and saying, well, you have an issue, so you don't have a right to come to me. I'm your leader. You don't have, or whatever. That is something that we need to heal from and grow from, or what have you. And so I would encourage you to do what I did, which was I'm going to do better to those that I lead and to those I'm in a relationship with than was done to me. And so even though I couldn't go to my leader and express myself and share my thoughts and my heart, I wasn't going to be that kind of leader, and I wasn't going to be that kind of believer. I was going to be a believer where if other people have issues and challenges or concerns they wanted to talk to me about, I was going to be able to be one that they could come up and communicate with. And I was going to be the type of leader that people felt that they could communicate with. And so I had to change myself rather than trying to demand somebody else to change, because I can't change someone else. They have free will. And I had to change. And then I had to make decisions about what type of leader I wanted. So I'm not going to be in a church where I can't go to my leader. If I'm saying I want a leader that's approachable, I want a leader that's healthy, I want a leader that lives what they preach, I'm not finna sit up in a church where the leader is not living what they're preaching, but because they got a good word every Sunday, I'm gonna still go. Or because this church is whatever, it got daycare or whatever the case may be, I'm gonna still go. Or because I've been going here for 20 years, I'm just gonna stay. No, I'm going to focus on finding me a leader that I can actually process in wellness with, and even where my interactions with my leaders start to heal me. Because I would have to say that for me, the overseer of my ministry, she's the one who healed leadership issues with me, because she was somebody that I could go to and process with, speak truth with, share my heart with, my concerns with, and she was okay with walking those things out with me, or what have you. And so, you have to decide, what type of leader do you want, Audrey? What type of church environment do you want? And then begin to pursue that versus just staying under ministries or engaging with ministries and leaders who really can't recognize where you are in your calling, in your emotional wellness, and process through with you, or at least pair you with somebody in the ministry that can do that with you. Okay, so I would say that's the first place you need to start. The second place, I would encourage you to get healed within yourself, or what have you, especially from anger issues, things like that. Anger, resentment, popping off on people, things like that. Those are symptoms of unresolved issues. So you want to get healed of those unresolved issues so that when you are communicating with someone, and even if they go off, you can recognize this is their issue. This is not mine, because I'm responsible for my character and how I respond. Okay, I'm not responsible for that person and how they respond or whatever, but I am responsible for my own wellness. And so I have to get to a place where I am well, where even if somebody else start to pop off while I'm trying to share my heart with them, or where, or what have you, that I don't start rising up as well. And then if I do, then I know that this is not a conversation I can have right now. And I will say that, I need a moment. Maybe we need to reschedule this meeting and discuss this when we both have had time to calm down, explore our true feelings with the Lord, and then come back and process again. Or there may need to be somebody in the room that is helping for you to talk, or or what have you. And so you might need a counselor in the room. You might need a third person that's not connected to the situation in the room to help you all have healthy dialogue without going off on each other. So those are some suggestions, but I would definitely encourage you to get healed of your unresolved root issues so that you can get healed of, any unhealthy ways that you would engage. But I do want to say this: anger is biblical. Now, how you handle the anger is a sin. So the Bible does not tell us not to get angry. It says, do not let the sun go down on your wrath. And so you can get angry, but you can't pop off. You can get angry, but you can't go shoot nobody. You can get angry, but you can't be cussing nobody out. So all emotions are gauges, even anger. God got angry, and then he had to repent sometime. He would be like, I'm gonna kill everybody. And then he'll be like, okay, no, that wasn't a good idea. So let me back up. Next time I ain't gonna wipe the earth out. Okay. That wasn't right. I should have thought about that. Whatever. So God gets angry. All right. Or whatever. I mean, he had the prophets telling people, I'll take all you out and your generation. And then he'll say, but if you repent, so he gets angry, but it's how we process that anger, okay, and making sure that we are leaving room for resolution and restoration and reconciliation, because that's what God did. Even as he would get angry with us, his heart is to be restored back into covenant and right standing with us. So that's why he gives us those warnings. And then he says, but if you change, this will happen and that will happen, or what have you. And so it's okay that you get angry. What you want to get healed from is how your anger manifests itself. Okay. And there may be a spirit of anger there. You might have to cast the spirit of anger out. You might have to ask God for meekness and humility. You might have to ask God to teach you how to gauge your emotions and all of those things. And so maybe we can do some future rooms on that. Okay. So I would encourage those things as well. We are going to close this room out and start our next room, because we actually were supposed to start another room at 7:30 called Territory, Spirits, and Relationships Part 2. So we are going to close this room and immediately start that room. And so if you want to meet us in that room in the next 10 seconds, you can. If this word has blessed you, you can look at the bottom of my bio. If you would like to sow a seed into the ministry, all the information to do that is there. We also have a book called Kingdom Keys to Governing Relationships. It's on Amazon and it's on our website at kswu.net. It has information in there about how to set boundaries, how to identify your standards in relationships, how to communicate, healthy communication skills, healthy conflict resolution skills, healthy interpersonal skills, how to balance your emotional wellness. It has information there about spirits that attack relationships, how to identify those things, on and on and on. I highly recommend that book. Also, if you need healing from relationship trauma, on Saturday from 9 a.m. Eastern to 12 p.m., myself and Mercedes Carr will be doing a webinar. It's actually a course where we will be talking about how to heal from relationship issues and traumas and how to identify them. There will be a time of Q&A, and there also will be a time of deliverance and healing. So you can also get that information on our website. Sign up immediately because that is on Saturday morning, and you want to be able to get the link and all the information to be able to attend that course. All right, this room is going to end the right way. I'm going to actually push the right button to leave it. In 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Shift right now to the next room. Blessings, you all.